Well, good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming through and checking us out. I, of course, have Tyler Wentland here, and we're going to talk some Red Koi. Uh, Tyler, to start off, do you want to direct our watchers anywhere particular to your website, etc.?
Oh yeah, sure. TylerWentland.com. And that's where you can find art, find books, and you can find all the Red Koi books at alternacomics.com.
Sweet. So, looks like we have a little bit of a delay between the two of us, so I just want to apologize about that up front. I've been trying to tweak that out as best I'm able, and it's not going well. But yeah, so Tyler, of course, is the writer, creator, artist for Red Koi, the book that I color. And yeah, we just wanted to get together, kind of talk about what's happened most recently. We finished up the second arc, and yeah, it was pretty exciting stuff going on in the book. Tyler, just for anybody that's new to the whole thing, if they just ambled in here all of a sudden, do you want to give them the quick pitch of what Red Koi is all about, and get them up to speed on what we're talking about?
Yeah, Red Koi, it's a dark fantasy samurai comic, not a historical epic. I don't want to be constrained to telling a history. Other artists have done it way better. So it's a fantasy world. We follow the adventures of Aiko Red Koi. She is a samurai, part of the Ohira clan, and in the first volume, we meet Aiko. She's traveling to a castle her father built on the site of what she thought was a great victory. And her parents have passed, and she's going to put their affairs in order, and gets there and finds that there's a demonic presence that is taken up residence in the house, and also the great victory that she thought that her family had won was not so glorious. And so the first arc, we really find, she's coming in kind of feeling at peace in her family and her tradition and who she is, and by the end of it, she's really broken. She's doesn't know herself apart from her family, and she's decided that she needs to try to find what that is. But you can't always, cut yourself off. You can't cut yourself away from who you are completely. And so that's where we get into chapter 2.
Sweet. And real quick, I just want to mention too. I wanted to be sure to mention that we, of course, are 2 of 3 parts of the team. Of course, the lettering is done by Wes Loker, and you should definitely check him out. He does really exciting stuff on the book lettering wise, and he definitely deserves a shout out. But
Wes is great.
So let's see. So you kind of hit all the points there, and so yeah, the next arc, the second arc that we just finished up, issues 3 through 5. I don't know. It kind of starts out, and Aiko's kind of wandering around in the woods. Do you want to pick it up there and?
Yeah, and so we start.
Tell us what you give us the.
You start Red Koi issue 3, and yeah, she's gone. She's left the castle. She's in a way she's tried to, free herself, become a Ronin. There is this path in their culture to kind of just take the wandering road, extricate yourself from your responsibilities, but what we find in this second arc is that Aiko and the samurai clans are actually part of a much larger world. We meet Merut, who is a bounty hunter, a ranger of a group of knights called the White Lotus, who are part of a far kingdom called Verakur. And what Aiko finds is that she's actually a part of a much larger alliance that's being made between the Empire of Verakur and the samurai clans, because the world has fallen into disarray after what's called the Long War, which is this cataclysmic battle between the Dragon Ryushin and her loyal samurai clans and the Tiger Lord Shoki Kaigo, who's this sort of demigod like mysterious figure who came down from the hills, and they got into a fight and ended up slaying each other. But the landscape, the empires were left in complete disrepair, so the humans are trying to pick up the pieces, and so the empires are trying to find alliances where they can. And so Aiko is wandering this road thinking that she's free when she, is tracked down by this warrior hunter, and so and a whole bunch of other warriors along with him. Um, and so she finds that there's more at play here than she had anticipated.
Sweet. Cool. Yeah.
One thing, one
I
thing I
mean, you
will
already kind
say,
of you do this.
sorry, one thing I will say is that in the Red Koi Part Two, what I do try to do is give us more of diversity of environments. So the first chapter it took place in this one haunted castle and kind of the underwater or the lower like bowels of the castle. Hey GJ, love having this guy here. Love GJ. And In Red Koi chapter 2, I always think of stories in terms of environment because I got to draw it, right? So I want to draw something that's cool. So it's like chapter 3 I call kind of a jungle runner adventure because I always love that genre. And then chapters or part issues 4 and 5 are more of like the hidden temple adventure. They're in the jungle, they come across this ancient temple from this dead culture that's just swarming with monsters essentially. So that's what I tried to bring to the second chapter: is more environments, more characters, give you a peek at the world beyond the self-contained story in part 1.
Yeah, and I love what you do there. You can really tell that 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 you're really excited about the environments in the different locations and stuff. That really comes through in the illustration. And it's funny because I keep saying, I've said before, but it's like you read my mind and you knew what I wanted to color beforehand because each consecutive issue is like, oh yeah, oh this is great. Yeah, it's like exactly the type of stuff. Just so much characterization in the locations, the backgrounds, and all of that. So it is super fun. And yeah, so I mean, you already mentioned Marut, and then we have another character that kind of pops in as well, the monk. What is his name? And obviously, he's got a little history too.
Numa. His name is Numa. And yeah, he's just,
Numa.
I don't know. When I was drawing it, I had this idea because with Red Koi in the first part we have Kairu, who's this little frog man. And I something that I always love. So one of my favorite artists is Akira Toriyama because I was a big Dragon Ball Z fan as a kid of the show, and then growing up later on, I learned it was a comic. So that's how it goes sometimes. And so, but I always loved Toriyama, especially in terms of manga artists, because his stuff is always different. It was always just it was different than what I thought, what I was seeing from the rest. So but I loved it in his story. You had all these aliens and these characters, but there were elements of a traditional world as well. So when I was drawing the first part, I just ended up with this little frog guy. I was like, huh, okay, well, we'll see where that goes. but then I thought, there's room there to then, get a little crazy, So we have this warrior who's a panda creature kind of thing, and he kind of bursts in there. And so he's a monk of an order that I called the Dirac Order, and I'm still understanding what their role is here, but it's a group of monks who've been forced into the outskirts of the land, so they live kind of in the hinterlands, the edge between civilization and the wilderness. And Aiko has a larger role to play in this story than just, you know, cut your hair and rip off your patches and say I'm done. She can't do that. She's got a much larger job to do, and the monk, he has some intuitions of that, so he's gonna try and help her. And then and something that I thought, I always try to make myself giggle just a little bit when I'm doing these stories, but it was in the last page. Spoiler alert! In the last page, the monk basically says, come with me. And she's like, who are you? He's just like, I'm not this guy. And she's basically like, okay, good enough. So then they go. But yeah, Numa, he's got a larger role to play in the story. Hey, Benjamin, how are you? Oh man, awesome time on the show. And he'll definitely be back.
Yeah, I really love how really, as you go through the story, both the things you're revealing about the world, as well as the things that I don't get left behind. I don't, but there's these characters that I feel like right now it's like with a lot of stories, it's like if they are kind of sort of a bad guy, they die before the story is over. And that obviously never used to be a thing in comics when we were kids.
Yeah.
And so the idea that the little frog guy is still out there, who knows if he ever shows up again, but it adds to the world, her interactions with these different characters in these different places, and the idea that the world, there is a world left behind, whereas I feel like with a lot of modern stuff, it's like the characters just leave a trail of devastation, and like really, it's not world building, it's world destroying, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And honestly, I think what I had to do when I started Red Koi was get to know the world. So I actually ended up writing out as much of the mythology and legend of the samurai culture as possible, and as much of her family's story as possible, as much of her own story. We find out what we don't know in the first chapter. We find out later is that she's married. She has a husband who is out there, and actually, there's the back feature in the alternate giant here. You see that. He essentially gave his life when they were being routed by an enemy, and she just thought he was dead. And that a whole part of the adventure now is that she gets some hint that he might be alive. And so this is why she's left the castle, thought that she had no ties to the rest of her life, or to her old life, and then she finds that, well, he might be out there. And so now the story becomes, well, how does she pick up the pieces and rebuild? And that takes us into a whole new direction. But yeah, with world building, what I found, and I'm curious if you've had this experience too, but things that I loved as a kid, things that have just been clanging around in the back of my head that I thought I forgot about, they'll come out when I'm writing. And I'm like, oh man, I love this kind of thing, and that I never knew where I would possibly use it, but it's here. This is the place it fits, Did you find that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And so revisiting a lot of things I loved as a kid too, because you're working on developing something, and you get this this tickle of a memory about something, or something comes up, but then maybe you don't even remember how it got be to that thing, you know. So like I found myself returning to old movies and old books and old comics and being like, how did that come about? And you know, it really it fills that creative bank within your brain, I think.
But it's also following a thread. So, like what you said, I didn't want to kill Kairu in the first issue because why would I want to cut that thread? And if you, like you had said, if you cut all the threads, well, then you don't have anything. And then when you finally do, when a character finally does die, it's gonna have that punch. But if he's not, if he's just horribly injured and vengeful, there's a thread there that I can follow at some point later on. And the funny part, I mean, the thing that I love most about doing comics, and especially, doing my book with Alterna, is that there's encouragement there to have fun, and I get to draw my favorite characters. Like, I love my characters. They're so much fun to draw, and if I have one, why would I want to kick him out of the club too soon?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's so you kind of jumped ahead of me. I mean, not really,
Nope.
but obviously the reveal. So obviously, Aiko's husband is alive. He's out there. I mean, we now, you know, very loosely have an idea of what's gonna happen in the future, but certainly don't have any idea of what it's gonna take to get to for her to get to him.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of excitement there. Can you just talk about so like where is he? Like so there's what the Veracur.
Yeah, yeah.
How does that kind of fit into? I mean, you already started talking about the uh, the layout of the world and stuff, but like, is that part of Kitagawa's domain?
So Veracur is not part of Kitagawa's domain. But so I definitely, obviously, like, it's a samurai book in the same way that King Arthur is like a European knight kind of story. It's like a grand kind of take on that aesthetic. And so I wanted to do the same thing um, with Veracruz being like more of an Indian empire, because I've read about some of the different cultures from India and the great empires that they've had, and the amazing artwork and warrior cultures that they have, and so that's kind of some of the aesthetic that I've tried to take there, especially the Sikh warriors from India, um, and I wanted to give them a place, and it's sort of um, Geronimo of Blood Realm has really pushed me to do a map because I need to figure out where all the stuff is. So actually, like, this right here is my beginning stages of a map of the world. But I wanted to have some kind of similarity where, like, when you look at India on a map, it's in this very rich, lush, central location in the world between the empires of China and the Middle East. Um, and so it's got this Veracruz, this central location. It's called the Great Mother because that's where everyone comes to trade and to feed and to take and to everything happens in Veracruz. But, and I'm trying to find the page right now, off the coast of Veracruz is this horrible island prison, and kind of just get a little look at it there. This horrible island prison of Moraka, and these black ships are sent out there daily with prisoners. And so Aiko's husband is Jozen, and Jozen, when he was found, he was called a traitor or a deserter, and he was sent there. You know, so she thinks in one moment that she's free, that that she sort of has an unknown path, And then all of a sudden she's told that, the only person she cares about in the world is in this horrific place in this land that she's never been to, in this empire that essentially dwarfs Kitagawa's shogunate at this point. Kitagawa is powerful, and the samurai clans are powerful, but they've kind of stuck to their own place here, and they're not this major, massive empire, trying to conquer the world.
Very interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So Maru and is it Marani? So are they part of the Verakur then?
So
Part of that
yeah.
that particular empire?
So Maharani means queen. I think that's in Hindi. I could be wrong. It's so long since I actually looked at it. I'm not trying to offend any readers, but Maharani means queen, and I didn't want. I don't know. I wanted it to have some kind of a. I wanted to have a very specific connotation, and so I thought that was it was better to kind of go with something closer to the empire it's based on. But yeah, Marut serves the Maharani, and she is the queen of Verakur. The White Lotus Knights are the rangers that patrol her border, the borders of her empire. So think Aragorn. There's definitely a nod there to Aragorn and the Rangers in Lord of the Rings, where everyone is safe because these warriors are on the fringe, keeping enemies at bay. And Marut's he's got an interesting story as well. You see in the 5th issue there's this moment where he has this long braided beard, and Aiko has him, over a cliff and holding on to him by his beard, and and then she cuts it, and the beard, the maintenance of this symbol of his time out in the wilderness, because the longer he's in the wilderness, the longer that beard gets. The more loops that he adds to the braid, the more that shows the time that he spent defending his country. And that has major implications for him when he returns, when he finishes his service. And then she's taken that away from him in an instant. Or you could look at it from her perspective and say, well, he lost it, And so we'll get into more of Marut's story. We haven't seen the last of him, and what this means for his service to Verakur, and we will see the Maharani at some point. She's got a larger role to play, dealing with someone like Kitagawa, which, if people haven't checked out the Red Koi Giant, this is the only place where Kitagawa has appeared, but I'll just give you a close up. Kitagawa, he is a samurai, but he's this gigantic, towering kind of, he's just sort of like walking, towering armor. Like, here's a page. I'll be honest, I really loved how this panel came out, but just to get a sense of the scale. And this is also why I like working in fantasy, because I want to draw.
It's.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, if you haven't picked up that giant, but you're familiar with the rest of Red Koi, you need to grab the giant, and obviously you're getting a little snippet of it there. But yeah, you start to realize how terrifying Kitagawa is when that panel that you just showed of just this gigantic warrior, and that he's not happy. So yeah. I mean, there's so many things looming in the background for Aiko that it just adds such an element of drama and interest to the story.
Well, there's an
and
idea.
Actually, I'm going to segue from that into what. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, there's an idea, like a traditional understanding of evil that says that evil is a privation of good. It's a lack. It's a lack of something that should be there. And so you see, like with like when you had like Tolkien's Sauron. He's there is something, but there's definitely a lack of there. He's the eye, but there's no presence there. And or like when you have the ring wraiths, and I think like Jordan Peterson's made this point before, but like when you remove the mask, there's nothing there. So I'm not saying that's the exact thing I'm going for with Kitagawa, but with Kitagawa, it was important to me that he's just this towering figure of just this emotionless mask with this darkness behind, and we don't know what's behind there, but there's this something monstrous carrying it. So that was kind of the idea behind what did I want from Kitagawa. I just knew I wanted this giant hulking presence, but with like just made of like pure like armor.
Yeah, no, and it's yeah, I mean, it just works. It just hits really hard. I was so excited when I read that story. Obviously, that was still black and white and in color. I wasn't familiar literally until I got the giant, and so that was just it smacked me. But I mean, one of those really cool details that I found in that last issue is the kind of like a tender moment between Aiko and her father, who, and maybe it's just me, but in that the first story, first two issues, I mean, he just seems like a villain.
Yeah.
He just comes off as not a good character, and yet, you also at the same time see Aiko's love for her parents. You see a love for her father, and so it comes off as a little confusing. And so seeing these elements come out now as we go through it, and seeing the multifacetedness of these characters is really cool, I think.
Yeah, and that's something that I wanted. One thing I will say is like, so in issue 1, and I add these things, but they are easily missed. So you do have like hints here. This picture right here, like this is Aiko and her father flying a kite,
Yeah.
and this is where the Spider Woman saying, "I knew you would come home," and and I did want that because when you have a one-dimensional villain, so like what I was just saying before, right? Pure evil is a privation of good. It's just there's nothing redeeming about it. But when you have a character, there's always going to be some inclination, some balance there that's taking place. We all have the choice between good and evil every day. And so when you had Naga, who's Aiko's father, I did want to have this kind of strange situation where like Aiko loves her father. She respects her father. He's a hero in their family, and she's proud to be his daughter and to serve under the same banner as him. And which is why it's so devastating when she sees what he's done to this, quite, innocent frog people out in the swamp just trying to live their lives. That there's a darkness here that maybe she didn't know was there, or maybe she was willfully blind to. But so I wanted to play on that more, in issue 5 when you have this. This is them. There's there's obviously a religious element to it with their relationship to Ryushin the dragon, and he's here with her, and and they're, as we're seeing Aiko in the present, we're also seeing him. He's telling her his story. His story about when he was a child, and kind of the first time that he was faced with a dark decision. What did the first time he really felt like he chose something like that he chose to embrace the darkness. And it's something that I think will echo on for Aiko. You know, she's a human in this story, and she's got to face she's going to face similar challenges in terms of choosing good or choosing the evil in the short term because it seems like the best thing for her at the time. Um, but it's like, and I don't want to talk too much, but it's like, it's also the situation we find ourselves in. Like maybe the first time you ever realize that someone you really respected or really loved is a human, is like is capable of failure, is capable of letting you down, or isn't as perfect as you imagined that they were. You know, that's kind of what I was getting at with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super cool, the depth of those of the characters you're building and the world you're building. Um, so yeah, so Shatter Legacy is done, and now we're working on the next installment. So
Yep.
how's that going? Uh, what can you say about it? What's the thought? You know,
Anybody listening and like
can
sees me kind of chuckling, it's like you know how it's going because we just spent a half hour looking at issue 6 colors and how great it looks. Um, so yeah, no, we're very excited. Issue 6, just about ready on colors, and then we'll be getting it to Wes for his Dynamite letters. But yeah, issue 6, and we've said before, issue 6, we bring back the Swan King. The Swan King makes his return in the pages of Red Koi, and this is an idea that Pete Samedi texted me about. I don't even know, a year, 2 years ago, and I'm there one night. I'm sitting there drawing, and I get a message from Pete. It's just, hey, what did you think about bringing the Swan King into the Red Koi universe? I was like, well, now I can't stop thinking about it. And he is the reason I didn't get any sleep that night because I was up every like 10 minutes writing down ideas and writing down ideas. Um, and so for readers who like the Swan King one shot, um, issue 6 of Red Koi, it's going to bring them together, but it's also going to serve as like almost like a second issue for the Swan King because we want to know what brings him from the castle onto what we're calling the Carrion Road to meet Aiko. What does that meeting look like? Because obviously she's not very trustful of strangers at this point. Um, and they're gonna travel together for a while. We'll see how long. But personally, I love having these characters on the page together. They're on the page right behind me over there. Um, it's a blast. They're my two favorite characters I've ever created, and yeah, I think that readers are gonna really like it. And your colors look absolutely phenomenal. I was telling Nick before the start of the recording that the way, so I've changed some things about the Swan King, but his balance of the gold armor and the maroon cloak, the way that he's done that, I love those colors together. Absolutely love those colors together. So, yeah, I'm very excited.
yeah, yeah. No, it's exciting to see this stuff start to come together, and yeah, I mean it almost seems in retrospect seems like it was so obvious that the Swan King and Red Koi would be in the same universe, because they fit together beautifully.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's funny, and it was one of those things that think I had briefly thought about it at one point because I was like, well, I like the Swan King, and I'd like to bring him back at some point, but I can't mix my worlds. It's gonna, I should keep them separate. And Pete has this great insight that's very, I don't know, it's very not like, it's like he's not worried about doing what everyone's doing in comics. He's like, don't you remember when we were reading X-Men and some new character would come in and you're so excited and then they just go off to the Savage Land for, however long, or like they go do something on a whole new adventure. He's like, that's what you can do. And it's fun and it's fun for readers. And I was like, you're right. That is fun. you know? I love that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's just, and that's a lot of his direction. A lot of times it's just, dude, have fun, make it fun, enjoy it, enjoy the process, Um, so that's what we're trying to do. And it does seem obvious in retrospect, those little kind of ideas clanging around and they filter out somewhere. Um, but and I'm happy to keep talking, but you're working on a project as well with Samarex. How's that coming along?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's getting there very slowly. I'm really excited about it. Actually, it's really starting to evolve. I'm trying to set very high expectations for myself. So I'm really trying to get the visuals right and like just consistent and just I want it to feel like it's a world and that it has this look to it. And yeah, so I mean it's pretty cool. So Samarex, he's essentially a very advanced robot, essentially an android. Um, but he doesn't know who created him or really how he came to be or why. And we start to get a sense of it in this storyline that he was found essentially, in a back to tank or in a
Yes.
stasis pod
I love that.
by this bounty hunter. Um, and I don't want to give too much away because I'm still developing it, but
Mm.
in the second storyline, we'll find out a lot more about the two of them and how he came to be essentially um, this bounty hunter's assistant, a bounty hunter of his own. Um, it comes naturally to him because he's such an advanced being. He's fast and smart and has amazing reflexes. And but the story starts out, and his mentor has been killed,
Mm.
and so now he's running around trying to essentially he's avenging him, but um, he's collecting bounties on the individuals responsible for his mentor's death. And so you
That's
get the
awesome.
sense that there's a level of um, he's pushing the envelope.
Hmm.
Is he gone beyond a reasonable level of whatever, or is he just out to destroy these individuals? And through this first story, I mean, just get a sense of what he's about, how he operates, and but then towards the end, you start to of this just first issue. It's going to be like one issue. You start to get an idea that there's a lot more interconnectedness of it, and that he and his origins may have more to do with his mentor being killed than he realizes.
Mm.
So it's kind of a neat little book. Kind of trying to develop these characters in this world. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of coming up from scratch. But
Well, I love the look of it and
he's
the
got some.
aesthetic, like the neon aesthetic. It's like it's a very cool look every time you post some art from it. It's exciting to look at, and it looks like it's gonna be like fast and I don't know, like a really cool anime,
Yeah, I'll see if I bring up a couple of things quick.
Yeah,
So I have shown some of this before. Um, and I'm still developing all of it, but
we all are.
yeah. So yeah, so this page isn't completely done, but I have a little bit more to add. Let's try and get it here. Just a second. So
Yes.
So this is kind of like the first
That's awesome.
spread of the story. It's not quite done. Obviously, there's going to be an advertising piece here on this floating holo screen, but I just wanted. I'm really working to incorporate a lot of organic and technical stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
And there becomes an element of there being an element that really connects the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really, and that's where some of his origins are gonna come out of that. The idea of the merging of this high tech with the with
The
organisms
organic.
and stuff. Organic, yes, thank you. But yeah, so like I just like drawing mushrooms, so got some mushroom action here, and like creating this. This is like the world prime, overpopulated, but the idea that this world is really being you're seeing these elements of the organic and the mushroom, like all of this stuff just continuing to grow over it, like
that is so cool.
In the opposite of the idea that obviously industrialization kills the environment, etc. The idea here is really that they're sort of trying to battle back the organics of this world, and this world in particular is like the source of that very coveted element that they're developing into everything. And then you have these two characters here that at first were just drones kind of idea, but they've developed into something much greater than that. They're going to have very distinct personalities. They're built to operate as a pair, but they have a history far beyond even Samarex himself. Where they came from originally, how they came to be with Samarex's mentor. Now they're with Samarex, and they're obviously they're little data machines. They hunt down, follow trace signals, find bounties, but they're really going to factor a lot in this world and in the story.
I love drawing animals, so I think that animals are super cool. Mechanical animals included as well. One thing I'll say that I love about this picture is this little series of drips from this like pipe, stuff in the background, in between the birds there. I love that kind of detail in backgrounds. That's what makes it so interesting to look at. It's just those little kind of lived in details. Maybe I'm the only one that's excited about the dripping actually, machinery, but I think it's very, very cool.
And this isn't even really, let's see if I bring it up here. This isn't the most recent version of the page. Actually, here it is. So I went through and I just added more.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, the organic stuff.
Working. Yeah. Which I just love to draw.
Yeah.
So, like I was drawn to this high-tech, futuristic cyber story, but then I realized
out
just
a little
I needed
bit. I want to see the whole thing. so cool.
You actually got like a little thing here that you can kind of see the page fold, but
The colors are so
yeah.
good.
So I just love this. Like I just like doing this
Yep.
stuff,
Yep.
and it's probably stupid. I don't know,
No,
but
it's
just
not.
this like the
It's not.
glowy and the shiny, like it's just what makes it really fun for
Because
me.
your brain fills that in. Your brain knows what that is. That is height. That's flying cars and all kinds of stuff. Because anytime anybody's seen a city at night, you see that. You know, it's
Yeah.
totally. It's great. It's a great use of that space.
So then this is,
Oh, nice.
they've located the target. Just a kind of a. I mean, he's still very much kind of in mystery as far as this page goes. But yeah, so it's found the target and then kind of crashes through the ceiling. And I had different robots originally, and then I decided that I wanted them to be skeleton robots.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see on this image that I had to name them because I'm working on the next series of pages now, and I decided that the skeletons themselves, like I didn't want them to just be like the robots in Star Wars in the prequels, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
to chunk off the end of, the assembly line. Like I wanted them
Mm-hmm.
to be individuals. And so
Sure.
like the idea is that they're like they modify themselves and
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean in the next scene before they begin to battle, they're like, hey, I got dibs on Samurai-X's sword. Like the idea that they're, they have these
It
very
makes sense.
individual
They're
elements to
skeletons.
them.
And
So I'm having
everybody
a lot of fun with that. It's challenging.
everybody lost their minds when in Terminator 2, the foot stepping on the skull and you get the full body, the metal skeleton is back from the first movie. You know, it's such a cool concept. But it's like you're saying those things that you love and they're going to find their way, into your story. You're going to find a way to bring it into your vision and turn it into something completely different.
Yeah, sorry, chat, that I've kind of ignored you. Hopefully, I know there's a delay between Tyler and I. Hopefully, that hasn't derailed us too much. GJ, yeah. So, yeah, I have bounced between two primary projects, and right around first of the year, I don't know, I was kind of spinning wheels on Curse of These Bones. Been talking about that for a good year and a half. Before that, I was working on Samurai-X, and I just kind of stopped and I reevaluated and said, what of these projects is closest to just being a thing? And I realized that the Samurai-X project was the one that was just closest to coming to reality, and so that's why I kind of switched back. Curse of These Bones is still a thing. It's not going to stop being a thing, but I for my mental sanity, I said to myself, I need to finish a project this year and get it out to the world. And based on looking at what I had and what I had developed, Samurai-X was one that just seemed closest to being that. So that's why I kind of switched gears. And it's funny, working on this has given me some really cool ideas for Curse of These Bones, and I can't wait to get back to it. But my goal is to try and generally my goal is to have the art done before I ever try and crowdfund anything. The book will be ready
Yep.
to go to press when the thing's over. I'm not launching something that's not finished. I'll probably be adding some additional content to it because I do have some other things where I've written like just short prose background stories and stuff like that. And I'm going to dump all of that stuff into the book. But the comic itself needs to be done. But this is, I mean, I'm probably 8 or 10 pages away. So
Nice,
I'm
man.
pushing as hard as I can to finish it up. So, but I'm glad that you were interested in that other project, and it hasn't gone away forever. So I appreciate the support.
Very cool, man.
Well, hey, it's been almost an hour. So anything, you know what, real quick, I'm gonna hit on this. I kind of ran this a little bit before. Oh, I gotta run it now. But yeah, anyways, Alternative Comics Summer 2022 pre-orders is live on Indiegogo. Be sure to check that out. We don't have any Red Koi books in it, but those guys, all of those creators are so cool. They're doing such cool stuff. Be sure to get in there and back that.
The lineups, the images that Pete posts of all the books lined up, they just look cooler and cooler with every campaign. Like there's no, but I don't know. I don't think there's anybody that has such a cool looking lineup of books, you know. And we'll have ours in fall. You know, issue 6 will be part of fall's campaign. So almost there.
Sweet. And I know I'm also started a little bit on Can't Kill Cade #3. We had kind of an artist switch over there, but it's super exciting. I colored the cover for that one, and it's rad. It's pretty rad. So I know that'll be coming soon. Back to the alternate lineup. I think that's about all I got. I know 9 o'clock here. Our alternate creator Keith Gleason has got his Indie Comics Relay show. Be sure to check him out. Jump over there. And I think Pete was on right now too. I don't know if that's still going on where that is, but feel free to jump over there and check him out as well.
That's right.
Anything else before we sign off, Tyler?
No, but it's been great to talk to you. I'm happy to talk to you. Missed you. Love what you've done on the book. Love what you're doing with Samurex, and I'm excited. And I appreciate everybody who was following along tonight. GJ and Ben for chiming in, and we love to have the readers along to go on this crazy ride with us. So much appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody dropping in, watching live, jumping into the comments. I'm sorry, I'm such a noob at this, and I'm not good at keeping up with the comments the way I know so many channels do. But yeah, we see you all there. We see your name, Randy. You were in from the get-go. I don't think I shared any of your
Randy too.
But we really appreciate it. We love you guys, yeah, we should do this more just because I just love asking you questions and hearing the answers.
Yes.
So
yes, I'd love to.
We'll do this again soon.
Sounds
and for
good,
sure,
man.
If Red Koi is on the fall campaign, then we will definitely do it again and talk some more stuff. So
sounds good.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, have a fabulous evening. Have a fabulous summer, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Peace out.